What's up, guys, gals, and non-binary pals, and welcome to the second ever episode of Fangirl Freaks Out Podcast. I am your host, Alyssa, and I'm tired. If I'm going to be quite honest with you, it is finals week for me, so I figured why not take a little break and escape the world of school and talk about something that I really want to talk about. So, for this week's episode, I will be discussing my top My Hero Academia characters. Now, I didn't put a number to that, and there is a reason for that. Because if I'm being honest, choosing a top 5 or top 10 overall character is hard for me. Because I love a lot of the characters too much to choose. So for that reason, I divided them into subcategories. So I will have my top 5 students, my top 5 pro heroes, my top 5 villains, and in the words of Bakugo Katsuki, top 5 extras. Now they're not really extras. They're like the side characters who aren't really side characters. Like they can kind of be, well, everybody's a side character that's not Deku, but they're like, they play a big role in the story, though. So, but I figured, just call them extras because it's My Hero. That's just something they do in there, Anyway, so yeah, and I will try to stay spoiler-free for the most part, but if I do feel that I'm going to have to spoil some things, then I will give spoiler warnings then. I will try to also use the YouTube feature where like it's split up. You can split up videos into chapters. So like that's a thing that I'll do. So like if you don't really care about like who my favorite pro heroes are and you want to hear what my favorite villains are, you can skip ahead or whatever. That's up to you. I personally recommend listening to the whole thing. And I give reasonings behind my my top 5s for each categories as well. Or I'll explain where they're placed and why they're placed there. So disclaimer, these are all my opinions. I am entitled to my opinion just as you are entitled to yours. I will respect your opinion and I ask that you respect mine. So yeah, I think that's all for the introduction to this video. Or this podcast, this episode. There's no video. It's an audio only podcast. But yeah, let's get into it. Let's start with the students. So my top 5 students. Most of these students are like 1A students, if not all of them. Number 1. Or should I start with the 5? I think I'm going to go 5 and then up to 1. Yeah, I think that sounds good. So in number 5 of my top 5 students is Mina Ashido. I love her. I love the energy she gives off. Like I don't know how to explain it, but she just is so bubbly and like she just gives off great positive energy, and she's like everyone's friend, like the very friendly like I don't know how to like, yeah, she's just so, I love her. But also too, like she's very much like strong and courageous, and we see that like with Kiri's background of like flashback to like middle school or whatever, where she steps in and like she's not afraid to talk back or talk smack, and I love that. I love her for that. And then too, we see in the recent episodes of the anime, with the class 1A versus class 1B. I think this was like in the first of those like episodes, but she is like, she just gives funny commentary, or like her, what is it? What's the word I'm looking for? No. Wow, I really just spaced there. Like, I can't think of the word. No, like, favoritism or whatever, like commentary from Vlad King. That was a lot of spacing. You guys won't hear that because I will likely cut it out, but yeah. A reminder, I am very much scatterbrained, so if I seem all over the place or pause a lot or whatnot, that's just, I apologize for that. And like I said, I will try to edit that out so you guys don't have to deal with that. And it can be a smooth listen. But yeah, so number 5 is Mina for me. I love Mina and her energy she gives off. It's just great. Number 4 goes to Sue. Just like Mina, I love Sue for the energy she gives, and she's so kind and just she thinks about everyone. Also too, she's the most rational logic thinker in class 1A. If you really think about it, she's the one who always thinks things through and is always making sure people are using their best judgment. Is that a good idea? Are you sure? And she respects people's boundaries at the same time. She's just that person that yeah. She's the person that everybody needs as a friend. And yeah, also on the thought of her being the most rational thinker, if you would like to argue that and say, well, no, there's Ida or there's Momo, and or I'm trying to think of anybody else that might. Those are the first 2 that come to my mind. And honestly, I would originally agree with you. Yes, there's Ida and there's Momo. But I'm when you really think about it, Ida did sit there and think that it was a wise idea to go after a known hero killer by himself. He didn't think that through. That's not. He let his need for revenge overtake him there. So I'm that's not very smart of you, buddy. And you're supposed to be the class rep, the smart one of the class, and you thought that was a wise idea? Anyway, this is not me roasting Ida for his choices. And also too, Momo went along with the whole rescue mission, which granted, yes, it worked out or whatever, rescuing Bakugo, but yeah, it just, like Sue said, you guys are gonna get in trouble, we're not supposed to be doing this. She was being a rational thinker in that moment. But yeah, so Sue's my number 4. Speaking of the Camino incident, number 3 is Bakugo. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm surprised myself I'm sure most people aren't surprised that he's in my top 5. But I am surprised because, if I'm being honest, I did not like him in the beginning. I very much was annoyed by him and just his, aggressiveness and attitude all the time. And I was just why are you like this? Chill out, dude. And it was not necessary. Also, too, how he treated Deku in middle school was, not cool at all either. So I was not cool, bro. Don't like you. But then I got to reading the manga, and yeah, I was you know what? I get it now. Okay, I kind of like you now, dude. I get it, So I'm now I understand why this guy ranks number 1 on the popularity charts every year. So, but he's still not my number 1 on my list. He is just number 3 for me. And then number 2, the person who takes the number 2 spot is the good old purple-haired, sleep-deprived looking boy named Shinzo. I adore him, and his story about wanting to be a hero because people have always just suspected him to become a villain because of his quirk and all that. It's just first of all, why are you judging him based off of that? That's not cool, and you're just assuming things. But his want to prove them wrong and everything, I'm I feel I relate to Shinzo to a certain degree, on that level, because, like, I've been there where people have, like, doubted me and stuff. And, like, I'm now on the road to proving them wrong as well. And I'm like, I'm rooting for Shinzo. I'm so happy now, like, we're seeing in season 5 that he's getting the chance to be in the hero course and, like, try to get there. And I'm like, yes, he deserves it. He deserves to be there. I mean, he has a powerful quirk, like Deku had said, like, he could use it to help out in interrogations, or, like, there's so many ways. I think Deku said that, or maybe it was somebody in the stands at the sports festival. But there was, like, so many useful ways to use Shinzo's quirk in the hero field, and the fact that, like, people, like, instantly just thought, like, oh my god, that's a villain quirk. Like, no, why are you choosing to see the bad in people instantly? I mean, granted, I know, like, sometimes that's okay, like, that's good to have, but, like, he's just a kid who has a dream to be a hero. Don't automatically say, like, well, you can't be a hero because you have a villain's quirk. Like, no, like, let kids dream. I feel like that's, like, a recurring theme in this whole show, but yeah, no, I love Shinzo. He's just, yeah, he's best boy. Or one of many anyway. And so, yeah, he's number 2 on my list. He's, at the moment, technically the only person on this list, the only student on this list who isn't a 1A student yet. Let's hope and pray that he gets to join. And then the moment you've all been waiting for, who do I put as number 1 on my top 5 student list? Well, I feel like this is no surprise to anybody, really, that this student ended up ranking this high, especially at number 1 on my list. But at number 1 is Shoto Todoroki. My favorite Todoroki. I don't know. Maybe he's tied with Fuyumi, but, like, for the most part, he's my favorite. There's so much about Shoto that it's like, I love and adore about that child. Like, first of all, his strength to endure what he did and still, like, come out and be like, I still want to help people. I want to be a hero. Granted, was his reasons wrong kind of in the beginning of, like, I just want to prove my dad that I can be a hero without using his. It's like, that's kind of like, Shoto, like, maybe not do it for that reason. But, I mean, he through the help of Deku, like, he ends up, like, changing his way of thinking. I should have muted my phone before recording. That's fine. He changed his way of thinking a bit, and, like, yeah, so that's one reason why I like Shoto. Another reason is, like, the comedic value that his, like, aloofness has sometimes, like, adds to the mix of things is great, honestly. Like, I don't know. I'm like, I can relate to that sometimes, especially too, like, when Cammy was, like, trying to hit on him at the remedial classes, and he was just like, oh, okay, sure, yeah, no, and he just didn't know his, like, not inability, but, like, his, like, struggle to pick up on typical social cues. I can relate to that. Like, I don't know. I feel like I just relate to him a lot. Maybe, am I a Shotokin? I don't know. Do I kin Shoto? That's something I'll have to look into. But maybe that's why he's at number 1 on my list. But yeah, no, that's one thing. And he's so sassy. I feel like we don't get enough of sassy Shoto, but he really is sassy. Like, I'm so mad. This is one of the things I was the most upset about when it came to season 5, episode 2, is when they animated that scene of Shoto, like, eating his soba and being like, that's a bad scar. Like, it didn't, like, the manga, it was written so much more sassier, at least in my mind, in the manga than it was portrayed in the anime. Because, like, the wording, at least the translated version of the manga that I saw and read, was, well, that's a nasty scar you got there, or something along the lines. I think it was like, that's a nasty scar you got there, and then he slurps his soba, and I'm like, that is the most pettiest, sassiest response, and I am so here for it. That's my favorite Shoto, is when, like, he can be, like, very much, like, petty sassy in a way. Like, for example, another example of this is when they're in the remedial course, and it's a TikTok sound now, but, like, when he's talking with Bakugo, and I forget what he initially says, but, like, Bakugo's like, huh? Like, I turned out just fine or whatever. I'm so sad I cannot remember the words verbatim right now. And Shoto just goes, no. Like, that response, as minimal as it is, has such, like, a big impact and, like, how sassy and stuff it is, or he can be. And just, like, the simple no, like, yeah, I'm like, okay, you're doing great, Shoto. But yeah, like, so Shoto's my number one, honestly. Like, there's so many things about him that, like, I connect with, and, like, yeah, he was one of the very first characters that, like, drew my interest instantly when I started watching this show. And, like, other than my number one favorite pro hero, who's, like, my overall favorite, my go-to favorite, honestly, when I go to, like, listing who my favorite character is, which we'll get to that here soon. But yeah, Shoto is, like, the next person I would typically list. So yeah, Shoto's number one. And I have a couple honorable mentions that I would like to talk about before I move on to the pro heroes. But honorable mention number one is Deku. And I know, like, a lot of people are probably mad at me for not having him in my top 5. But I have this weird thing where it's like, I don't like because I feel like since he's the main character, it's, like, obvious that you're supposed to like him and have him in your top 5. And I don't know why I'm like this, but, like, I just don't do that or like doing that. Like, it's like if you like an album or listen to an album by an artist that you like, and you, like, are picking your top songs, your favorite songs from the album. When I do that, I'll avoid picking songs that were singles, because, like, to me, it's obvious, like, people are gonna have those songs in their favorites because they're singles. You've listened to them multiple times, longer than you've had the other songs on the albums to listen to. So obviously, like, that's the point of a single, is to get you drawn into the album and to like the vibe of it before it's even released. So I'm the type of person who's like, I'd rather listen to the album and find songs that weren't singles and admire the rest of the songs, if that makes sense. So that's why Deku, that's one of the reasons why he's not in my top 5. But, I mean, I just really, like, adore the other characters just a bit more. If I continued the list, Deku would be number 6. He's definitely in my top 10 for sure. Like, he has the most character growth throughout, and without spoiling the manga, like, he just becomes, like, a really good character. He's, like, one of the best written main characters. He's one of the best written main characters I've seen in a while. And I think that's kind of why, like, I'm very much drawn and attached to the show at the moment, is just because it's written so well, and the way that he's written as a main character draws you in and keeps you there. Another honorable mention for the students is Kirishima, best boy of class 1A. Like, he's just that friend who's there for everybody, and he just supports everybody and uplifts them. Anyway, I mean, we don't get much screen time of him, but, like, That's the vibe I get from him. And like he's all about being manly, and because of him I started using manly to describe some things unironically, and I started to notice that, and I'm like, I need to stop. Like it's a problem. But I really much do like Kirishima, and I like too that he's one of the few people that like Bakugo can be a bit more of his true self around. Like we saw that with the Kamino incident. Like he is someone that Bakugo trusts and puts his faith into in a sense. But yeah, I don't know. I just like Kirishima, like his vibe and energy, and the way too he interacts with Tamaki at his internship. Like that's great as well. But yeah, and then to him trying to overcome that fear from the past. That's another like thing I really enjoy about it. So that concludes my top students. Now, on to the top pro heroes. My top 5 pro heroes. Number 5 goes to Fat Gum. Fat Gum is just a teddy bear. Like, how can you not love that man? Like, the way he vibes well with Kirishima and, like, works well with him. And at the same time, he's very understanding and encouraging and supportive of Tamaki. Like, I just love him. Like, he gives such good, like, teddy bear cuddly vibes. And he's just so kind. And yeah, I want to be his friend. That's just the vibes I get from him. And yeah. Also too, not bad looking. I didn't want to talk about looks when it came to the students because they're minors and I'm not going to do that. But now we're on to adults, and so yeah, I'm not going to obviously like sexualize anybody or any of that, but in that too, like that's just not something I really do anyway. But Fat Gum's not bad looking, both in his Fat Gum form and then like the Skinny Gum. I call him Skinny Gum because I don't know what else to explain, like his deflated form, like that we saw with the whole Shihai Saikai like raid. That form too, good looking. Anyway, on to the next one. Number 4 is Mirko. I think I said her name right. I don't know, because I see different spellings for her name and different pronunciations, and I'm like, y'all got me confused. But Mirko is number 4 for me. Can we just talk about how beautiful she is, first of all? Like, that's not my reasoning for her being number 4. There's other reasonings. But she is so just gorgeous, and I strive to be, like, built like her because the strength that she has, and she's just, I know I said in the last episode I was going to refrain from, like, swearing and stuff like that, or try to anyway, but, like, there's no other way to explain or describe Mirko than badass. And, like, that's how I want to be when I grow up type vibes. Like, she's just great. Like, yeah, so I admire her strength and attitude in the small amount of that we've gotten to seeing her so far in the anime. There's more of her in the manga, but I won't talk much about that because, like I said, I don't want to have to do a spoiler warning for as long as I can. But yeah, no, there is, from what I've seen of her, regardless of if it was manga or anime, like, she just gives that boss lady vibes, and I love that about her. And I love, like, because she's up there in the top 10. I can't remember how the ranking system worked, but she's up there, and I think at least the top 5, like, of heroes, and the representation of, like, yeah, I'm a woman and I'm doing what these boys can do because girls are just as capable, which I feel like even though they don't really talk about that in the show or whatever, because obviously they wouldn't, but it's like if you really consider it and really think about it and look at things, like there's not a lot of female representation in the hero world. Like just look at Class 1A alone. There's 14 boys and 6 girls. Class 1B, I think, has like maybe one more girl than Class 1A does. Like, you don't see a lot of females, or you just see the guys being highlighted more so. So, yeah, I'm like, I love that she brings that energy with her to the table. So, that's why she's my number 4. And the reason why, I mean, she's still in top 5 for me, but, like, they're, like, my top 3, I'm like, I love each of them in their own way, so like that's why she got placed 4th. But yeah, so speaking of girl power, number 3 is Midnight. I adore Midnight. Like she's great. I'm saying that about like everybody, but like I truly mean it when I like they're great. Like Midnight can go from being like funny joke around type vibes to being serious and encouraging of her students and stuff. And then too, like just the energy, the chaotic energy, that's what she has essentially. Like she has like semi-chaotic energy, maybe not so much semi, but like she does have chaotic energy with her, and I love that. it brings a lot to the table. And fun fact, actually, Midnight was originally supposed to be the homeroom teacher for Class 1A. Now imagine how crazy that class would have been. Oh my God, I can only imagine like what it would have been like with Midnight there and Minetta in that class. Oh, I don't know if I would have been able to handle it, but yeah. So, yeah, Midnight is my number 3. Number 2, I feel like this is to no somebody's surprise at all, but number 2 is Hawks. There's so much about that guy that is just, I just adore and love. Like, first, I love the energy he gives of, like, he's just trying to be chill and cool or whatever. I'm not gonna lie, though, the couple episodes we got of him in season 4, like the last 2 episodes, I didn't really like him at first because I was like, he just gives me cocky, annoying douche energy, and I'm not here for that. Like, okay, I will say though, like the fact that he's 22 and I'm like, I'm the same age and you have your own agency and I'm over here struggling talking about anime on a podcast and ignoring my school assignments at the moment. We are not the same. But the more I learned about Hawks though through like reading the manga and stuff, and the more I learned just about him in general and like his past and everything, and we like got a bit more insight to who he is, kind of, I was like, okay, things make sense now. I get why he's like that. And honestly, like this, I just want to like give him a hug. Like, Hawks, baby, please. I love you. Like, I promise. Like, everything is going to be okay type vibes, you know? But yeah. Just like knowing his background and stuff, like I'm a sucker for like people with backgrounds similar to his, or like that's why Shoto's number 1 on my student list. Like anyone with like actually too, if you think about it, Shinzo's kind of got that kind of background too, with like him being told that he wasn't like made to be a hero or whatever. But yeah. So Hawks is my number 2, which, fun fact, I actually have a hoodie that's Hawks's hero costume. It's actually quite comfortable. I got it on Amazon for $20. This is not sponsored. I just I am nowhere near like a following to even get sponsored, but just thought thought you should know. You can get Hawks's hoodie or hero like costume, like at least the top half, as a hoodie on Amazon. It's actually quite comfortable, but it is like the material makes it not so much stretchy. So like I wish I got a size up, but like it's fine. Anyway, on to the number one pro hero for me, and honestly, he's like my top favorite character from the show in general, because like I don't know, this man lives in my mind rent free, and that is Aizawa. This man was the first one to catch my attention when I started watching this show. Like, the moment we were introduced to him, I was like, who's this? Who's this? Okay. I'm interested. I'm intrigued. I'm like excited to see where this goes. So, yeah, that was my initial reaction to Aizawa. I'm like, first of all, he looks tired, which I can relate to. I mean, we did like get introduced. No, we got introduced to him at the entrance exam when he was like leaning against the wall. But like the first introduction to like the students and stuff, he was in a sleeping bag. So like that makes sense that I was like, he looks tired. But no, like at the same time, it's like he just looks like he hasn't slept in forever. And I relate to that as an insomniac. So I'm like, yeah. And then there's more to his past as well that I'm just like, I feel you, dude. And I get it. And I just, he's like, the layers to his character are just, I love him. Love him. So yeah. I think that's it for those. I mean, I know I started talking about like looks when I talked about Fat Gum, but like, when it comes to the rest of them, I'm like I feel like every character in this show is like good looking in some way, shape, or form, if you really think about it. Not everybody though, but for the most part. But yeah, so some honorable mentions, and I want to pair these two together. Like, for my honorable mention section, I essentially chose like 2 additional characters who I would put like in my top 10 at least that I could think about. But some honorable mentions for the pro heroes is Present Mike and Miss Joke. I love the chaotic energy. They have more chaotic energy than Midnight does, except Present Mike does have like his calmness to him as well. That's shown more in the manga, which we'll see eventually in like season, I don't know if it'll be season 5. I think it'll be season 5. I hope it's season 5 because I'm excited to see more of him. But yeah, like, I don't know. When it comes to first of all, speaking of Present Mike, I love how everyone calls him Presentation Michael. Like, I'm sure that's not what it means or whatever, but like we've all as a fandom come to like an understanding that like, no, that's his full name. But yeah, no, when it comes to Present Mike, I just love him and his friendship with Aizawa. Like, I love them. They're just great. Yeah, I'm trying to avoid from saying any further comments that like come into my mind, even though that's the whole point of this podcast, but I'm like trying to refrain from certain things for now. Those are for later episodes. And Miss Joke, I love I love her energy with Aizawa as well, and like just her joking nature. I mean, I know that's her whole thing and stuff, but like her constantly asking him to like marry her and stuff like that. I'm like, honestly, girl, same, like, marry me, please. And but yeah, so I don't know. We don't get much of Miss Joke, but like even the small amount of Miss Joke that we do get, I loved every second of it. I was so happy when she was on screen. But yeah, so those are my pro heroes top 5s and honorable mentions. Next, I'm gonna move on to the villains, and I'm just gonna do the spoiler warning now because I know that I'm going to like eventually get to that, and I'm like, I'd rather just get it from the start than to wait for the moment to do that. But yeah, if for my top 5 extras, I don't think there'll be any spoilers until I get to maybe the honorable mentions, which I'll just do a spoiler warning again for that. But if you don't want to be spoiled, then you can skip this section, because like I said, I will be putting like the little chapters feature on this, so like it's easy to skip to like different parts of the video. Or well, yeah, it's a video on YouTube because that's where I post this. But yeah, so if you want to skip past this so you're not spoiled, then that's perfectly fine. Because yeah, this will contain big major manga spoilers, mostly because like a lot of the reasons why my top 5 villains are where they're at on the list are tied to things that are spoiled in the manga. Granted, so are my like top heroes and top students, but like there was enough there that I could not like have to spoil anything, which I'll probably like touch on those a little bit in this section since I am using this as my spoiler section. But yeah, so spoiler warning for the manga. This is your warning to leave. I will count down from 3 to give you time to skip ahead. So 3, 2, 1. Okay, now that that's done, these are my top 5 villains from My Hero Academia. Starting at the bottom at number 5 is Kurogiri. I love that we've all established that Kurogiri is like the mom of the League of Villains, and he just very much cares for all of them and takes care of them, and it's just like, I mean, granted, I think it's understood that like he essentially kind of raised Shigaraki, so like in a way he is kind of like a mom, but like it's funny that we don't say like, oh, he's the dad of the League of Villains. Like, no, he gives mom energy. And yeah, I like, though it's explained in the manga, but I'm like, I don't understand like how he's a villain sometimes, because like he's very chill and laid back, and it just doesn't make sense for him, you know? I don't know. But yeah, it's just the fact that he's like very chilled and laid back and like essentially like a parent of the League of Villains. Like, I just love that energy that he brings to the mix. It's like very much needed with the chaoticness that is everybody else. So he is my number 5. Number 4 goes to Toga. Now, I know like some people have issues with her because she's like kind of like, I don't know how to put it nicely, but she's Toga, and I think that's enough to explain where I'm heading at. But I'm like, because in the manga you get a hint a bit about her past, where she was outcasted and stuff because of her quirk, and it's like she uses her quirk and like her want to like have somebody's blood, because that's her way of expressing her love for the person. And it's like, it's so sad because it's like all these people that she's like, I love you like a lot, and that's why I want to do this, and they're just like turning her away and treating her horrible. I feel for that. And then too, like, this is a major spoiler, so like if you didn't know this and you're still here because you didn't mind the spoilers, I'm sorry to tell you this. But I did give a warning before this section. But so the moment when Twice dies and Toga is just like, her reaction and everything, and just her genuine like sadness, because she did see him as like her best friend, or they were super close, or whatever the situation there was. Like, I like her way of like kind of the change in her character a little bit there was like nice to see, and it really made me like understand her more past like the like blood crazed teenager who's on a murder spree or whatever. Like, it made her make more sense to me. And so, like, I, like, started to like her a bit more. So that's why she's number 4. Number 3 for me is Shigaraki. Again, like, because of his past, and like when we get to learn a bit more about him, which I believe we'll learn, like, it'll be animated for season 5, but I'm not 100% sure, because I'm not on the team for that, so it makes sense that I wouldn't know. But Shigaraki, like, his past, like, first of all, the saddest thing is, like, as a kid, this boy wanted to be a hero. And I have a feeling like he could have possibly been a hero had he not been discovered and found and taken in by All For One. But yeah, and it's like a lot of people just see him as a 20-year-old, because I think that's how old he is. A 20-year-old brat, like, who acts like a child but isn't a child, and he just throws temper tantrums and stuff. And it's like, well, one, he never got like a normal childhood, so I can see why he's like kind of stuck in that child mindset. And then 2, it's like he had a horrible like past. Like, first of all, his, like, he killed his family with his quirk when it manifested, without knowing that he was going to do so. And like, that can be traumatizing to any child, to witness the family's death, and not only that, but be the cause of it. And then 2, like, that same day, yeah, that whole story, I don't want to get too into it because I don't want to spoil too much, but like, yeah, just that whole story there, like, makes you really feel for Shigaraki. And then 2, like, where we're at in the manga now, where, like, Deku said that he saw, like, a crying child behind all of Shigaraki's, like, exterior. Like, I feel that. But yeah, like, it just made me have a lot more of an understanding of who he is, and like, I feel for him a lot. I don't know. Anytime I feel for a character, I'm like, you're now my favorite. I am here to protect you. But yeah, so that's why he's at number 3. Number 2 for me, to nobody's surprise, is Dabi. Now, I'm sure people are surprised he's not number 1 for me, but there's a reason why my number 1 villain is number 1, and I will get to that here shortly. But Dabi. That just reminded me of the TikTok of the little girl saying the characters' names. Anyway, I like Dabi's character a lot for like what he represents to the story, and like the message that not his character tells, with him being Toya, the son of Endeavor, the quote dead son, end quote, of Endeavor. But yeah, like the things he had to endure and stuff, and like the way, I don't know, there's the Todoroki family is a hot mess on its own, and honestly they need their own spin-off series, like Keeping Up with the Todorokis or something, because honestly I'm here for like the details on that. Like, as sad as they are, like, I am interested in the Todoroki family, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, no, like, just, there's so much to unpack when it comes to Dabi. Like, it's hard to get into. But his and Hawks' interactions, like, I love those, because, like, you can tell that they have very similar backgrounds, because they did. Except one became a hero and one became a villain. And also, too, same thing with, like, Shoto. Like, him and Shoto, Dabi and Shoto had, like, literally the same childhood. And yet one's becoming a hero and one's a villain now. Like, I don't know. I don't know how to put it into words anyway. Like, I just love that storytelling element that's there. I will get into, like, a lot of that later, because I plan to have, like, a whole episode just dedicated to Horikoshi appreciation for, like, the details he puts into this series, this story that he is telling. He's a good writer, and I admire that. But yeah, no, like, because of all that, that's why Dobby is, like, my number 2. And my number 1 villain goes to Twice. Now, as I mentioned during Toga's, this includes a spoiler of, sadly, Twice passing away. When he died, like, when I read that in the manga, like, that moment, I cried for a solid 10 minutes. Because right before that moment, like, we learn a lot about Twice, and he is someone I related to the most, because he was given the chance to turn away from villainy and get a second chance and, like, not face such bad repercussions or whatever. And he chose not to, because he saw the League of Villains as a family and as a place where he belonged and was accepted and wasn't turned away from. And he was loyal to that and them. And I, like, completely, as he was, like, explaining it or whatever, how it was explained, it's like, I feel that, because I know for a lot of people, like, it's very easy to feel ostracized and not feel like you belong. And when you do find that place, like, you find comfort in that, and you don't want to give it up or leave it behind, because then too you have that fear of, what if I never get that again? And so, like, his sacrifice and his willingness to give his all to this group of people who made him feel like he belonged, like, just his character in general, like, is very well written. And there's other moments before that like, made me slowly start to, like, fall for Twice, but not in, like, the romantic way, and more in like, fall for his character, like, as in, like, his character. I hope that makes sense. I feel like I'm not making sense, and the way I'm wording things is making it seem like I fallen in love with him in like, a romantic sense. I'm like, that's not the case, because I know people, like, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I have, if we're gonna be honest here, I have a simplest, but, like, I'm not, that's not the topic of discussion here. And he's not on it, but anyway, yeah, like, because of that alone, I'm like, and who he is, like, how much he is very much like, one of the most friendliest villains too. And yeah, so he's my number 1, my top villain from the My Hero Academia universe, and he deserves that number 1 spot, honestly. Some honorable mentions for this category. I'm sorry that the mood kind of, like, got brought down a bit from all the talk of that, but to lighten up the mood a little bit, some honorable mentions. We got Mr. Compress, because honestly, that man, just being as, like, extravagant as he is, and, like, just, I mean, obviously, like, he's like a magician. Words are hard. English is hard. English is a complicated language. And that's my first language, and I don't even understand it half the time. But anyway, that's besides the point. I'm getting sidetracked. Mr. Compress, like, just his, like, extravagant, like, he gives me, what is that dude's name from Princess and the Frog? The voodoo guy. I don't know why his name is spacing me right now, or leaving me right now, but he gives me his, like, those vibes, and I love it. Also, too, in the manga, like, we get a face reveal, essentially. Like, I mean, granted, I know we've, like, kind of seen his face before, but, like, no, we get a full on, like, his whole costume gets, like, destroyed. So, like, we see his, like, waist up, like, completely no costume. So, like, we full on see, like, his hair and his face and everything. Because even when we've seen his face, it's, like, been with, like, that black hooded thing on that covers most of his, like, head. And Horikoshi, sir, I would like to know why you decided to make this good-looking character hide his appearance a majority of the time. Like, what was the reason? He is really, I'm going back to talking about looks, but he is really good looking for, like, being a character that's hidden the entire time. I just had to say that. Um, but yeah, so he's up there. He's an honorable mention. And then another one, surprisingly, because I was trying to, before I started recording this, I was compiling my list and writing it out, because for the most part, these like podcast episodes or ideas aren't structured past like, this is what I want to talk about. With that in mind, I'm just gonna press record and start talking, and whatever comes out of my mouth is what comes out of my mouth. But like this one, I kind of, because it had to do with like my top 5, I didn't want to be so spacey trying to think off the top of my head who was in the top 5. Like, I already knew why, once I written down their names, why they were there in those positions. But I'm like, yeah, best not to just get in this empty-handed without any sort of like plan or whatever. So yeah, when I was writing these down, I like was like, let me do some honorable mentions, because there's some people like that I would put close to the top 5. But anyway, I don't even know why I got started on that topic or that tangent. But so my second honorable mention for the villains is surprisingly Chronos from the Shihai Saikai Yakuza. I know we don't see much of him, but like the small amount that we do, I'm like, he seemed like the most composed, like sane one there, for really being honest. Because if you think about it, Overhaul was not it. If I'm putting it plainly, like, he wasn't it. And clearly I don't understand his thought process at all. So, and Chrono was just down for the count. So I'm like, he was loyal. He seemed to like have his marbles together somewhat. So, but yeah, he was more like one of the more calm and collected ones that I actually didn't mind. So he's an honorable mention. And that concludes the villain category. So next is the top 5 extras, and this, for the most part, will be a spoiler-free like area. So you're safe here to listen. There'll be like a minor spoiler a little bit later, and I will be sure to give that spoiler warning for you. But for now, you're free to listen. It's spoiler free. So the next category is my top 5 extras / side characters that like make big appearances or just minor appearances in the show, that I absolutely adore and just wish that we saw more of, honestly, if I'm being honest. Number 5 is Masaru Bakugo, Bakugo's dad. He don't get enough credit for having to deal with both Mitsuki and Katsuki, because man, the way that man was able to just sit there and listen to them yell and keep his composure, like, I admire him a lot. Also, too, I relate to him a lot, because I feel like, well, granted, I can be loud, but I'm not loud and aggressive like the other two are. I'm more of like the quiet, especially in the situation in which we saw them, where they're like having an important meeting with like the teachers. I'm more like the calm, collected, quiet type. So I vibe with him. And then, yeah, I just find it funny too that like Bakugo got nothing from Masaru. Like, that poor guy. So yeah, he's number 5 for me. Number 4, not surprisingly enough, is Mitsuki Bakugo. I love her. She honestly is like one of my favorite like side characters. I love how she can go from like cool, calm, and collected when talking to the teachers, but the moment she's interacting with Katsuki, it's like a whole, like, they're mirror images of each other, and I just love that. I love that, like, Horikoshi essentially said copy paste for Bakugo, but like changed it up to a bit. He was like, you know what? It's like those situations when you're like, let me copy your homework, but like okay, just change it a little bit so like you can't tell. And all he did was like change the fact that Bakugo is a dude and not like a daughter. But yeah, so I like I said, I just love her energy. That I've said that a lot for a lot of people. I just vibe off of energies and vibes that characters and people in real life as well give me. So like I love her energy. Number 3 is Mama Inko, because Inko deserves the world. She is truly the best mom for raising Izuku all on her own for years. Like I said in the last episode, we don't know how long Hizashi has been gone, but she did that. And she deserves Mom of the Year award. Also too, she like spent a lot of money, I feel like, making Izuku's first costume, and the fact that she did that for him too, like, she's just so precious and she deserves the world. And she just cares so much for her boy. Like, come on now. I wish her husband would come back, and at the same time, I wish he wouldn't. I'm like, I wish she would just move on. I'm like, you deserve the world, Inko. Love you. So yeah, she's my number 3. Because my number 2 and my number 1, they're so just adorable that I just couldn't help but put them in first and second spot. So my number 2 side character, extra, whatever you want to call it, is Tamaki Amajiki, the precious shy boy. First of all, I have bad social anxiety, so like I can relate to him to like a degree, but like he's just the way that he can go to from like super shy to like what he pulled at the raid. Like, hello, hi, I like this Tamaki just as much as I like the shy one. Hello, it's nice to meet you, confident one. Confident Sun Eater. And then too, oh my god, his line delivery in the first episode of season 5, iconic. Like, that is honestly my favorite moment of season 5 so far. I know we haven't had much of it yet, but like that's my favorite moment. I love that moment because it's just, especially too, because so for season 5 I watched both the sub and the dub, like the English dub, and honestly that moment hit different in the English dub. Like, it was so much more dramatic and so much more comedic. It was great. Also too, that was such a mood. Like, I want to go home. Same. Same, Tamaki, same. So yeah. And the way too he gets along with like how he interacts with certain people, I love that as well. My number 1, to nobody's surprise, is Eri, because the small precious bean deserves the world. Okay, something else you'll learn about me, I just want to bring this up real quick, is like I tend to get into a sing-songy mood and will sing my words. That's what that just was. But yeah, I've been listening to a lot of music today, trying to focus for school stuff and keep myself from falling asleep. So, I'm just very much in a that's not a word, a musical mood today. But yes, my number 1 favorite is Eri, or Eerie, however you want to say it. I've heard both, but, she went through so much, and Eri deserves the world, for real. Like, and when she smiled at the festival in season 4, I cried. I like legit had tears in my eyes because that was so precious, and she deserved to smile. She deserves to smile more often. And I will never like Overhaul because of the the crap he put. I'm starting to get like very scatterbrained, so sorry for my stuttering, but he put her through a whole bunch of crap that I just could never forgive. So Aries, my number one favorite. Some honorable mentions. I'll start with the like non-spoilery one, and then I'll like mention the second one. But one honorable mention for like side characters is Inasa. I actually very much like Inasa's character. I feel like a lot of people were annoyed with him or didn't really much care for his character because of like the excessive like bowing and like loudness and whatnot. And I'm like, I love the dynamic like him and Todoroki had during like the provisional license exam, and then too like the way that he's very much friendly to anybody until like you give him a reason not to, and then he like doesn't like you, which I'm like, same. Like that is literally me. Like I am friendly with anybody and everybody. Like I will be your friend, but the moment you give me a reason not to like you, then I don't like you. Simple as that. So Inasa, yeah, I like Inasa though. Like I don't know, it's just there's something about him that like made me like very much vibe and connect with him. But yeah, so there's that. And then so spoiler for the Vigilante manga, and like a slight spoiler for the My Hero manga, but mostly the Vigilante manga. If you don't know what that is, that's like a spin-off of the My Hero series. But yeah, so slight spoiler for that. So 3, 2, 1. Another honorable mention, and honestly I think about this guy a little too often, I feel like, and cry over him a little too often, I feel like. Oboro Shirakumo. If you don't know who Oboro is, he is the high school best friend of Aizawa and Hisashi Yamada, which is President Mike. And they are known as the Rooftop Boys altogether. I will go more into like talking about them because I adore that trio so much. In the next Let's Talk About It, which probably won't be for a while, but yeah, Oboro Shirakumo, like I love, like he brings so much happy energy, and he really helped Aizawa get out of his shell and like create those friendships with like Mike and Midnight in high school. And like he helped a lot with it comes to Aizawa, and like he's great and I love him, and I was so sad when I learned his story. Like I cry thinking about it sometimes. And then too, like like a little fun fact, spoiler, a mixture of both, but like if you didn't know this, like Aizawa's iconic like yellow goggles that he has and wears with his hero costume was actually given to him by Oboro, and he kept it afterwards because of what happened to Oboro. And you're probably like, who's that? Why haven't we seen him in the My Hero Academia world? Well, that's because, like I said, spoilers for Vigilantes, he died when they were in high school. I think it's been hinted at that like Aizawa lost somebody or there was an incident, and like that's why Aizawa's the way he is. Like that's why it's like you have to take this seriously type vibes, and he's referring to Oboro's incident, which yeah. And the fact that he still like uses those were given to him by Oboro, like when I learned that I cried at that too. I'm very like emotional about the whole topic. But yeah, so that's my honorable mention for Oboro as one of my tops. My top fives. I should have finished that. Anyway, so that concludes the top 5 extras, and that also concludes this episode of the podcast. I hope you liked it. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm curious to see if I share any top 5s with anybody else. If you have any like people you would have put in your top 5 that maybe I didn't, or honorable mentions that like I didn't mention, let me know. I'm curious to hear or read what you guys have to say. And are you like me where you can't list the top 5 overall and have to divide it? Or can you list the top 5? I'm curious to see if people are like that as well. But yeah, just let me know what you thought of this episode and what you would like to hear or see from me in the future when it comes to this podcast. I'd be interested to know that as well. So yeah, that's all for this week. Next week, next time, like I said, I don't really know the upload schedule of this quite yet, but like, I don't know. I would love to do this weekly, but it does take time. Like, I'm sure you can see the time of how long this podcast episode is, and you're like, wow. I mean, it doesn't take much time because, like, it's just me rambling, but, like, that's besides the point. There's, like, other stuff behind the scenes that happens, but you're not here to listen to that. Let me talk about that. But anyway, thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of the Fangirl Freaks Out Podcast. I truly appreciate it. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to hear future episodes of this podcast. And let me know what you think. I'm very interested in creating a discussion around the topics that I talk about. So I hope you all have a great day, night, evening, whatever time it is, where you are. And peace.